Hi, and welcome to this video on managing emotions. So emotions are kind of like kids. In the journey of life, you're in your car, you're driving along, and you don't want to put your kids in the trunk. You want to have them in the car with you. And so this challenge for men in particular, but for lots of people actually, is the fact that we're actually told to stuff our emotions, shove the kids in the trunk, right? And first of all, aside from all the awkward screams and kind of getting pulled over by the police, you don't get to know your kids that way. And so we want to learn how to have them in the car with us, but obviously not a crazy mess where they're actually driving or crawling all over us. So there's this kind of in-between place where we need to be able to let our emotions be and exist and be in the room with us, and we don't want them to run the show. And so the challenge with that is we're not typically taught these things. Managing emotions isn't something I learned in kindergarten or grade 1 or anywhere, frankly, until I was around 25. And so the reality is there's actually a fairly simple model out there for this. And this model is called the ABCDE model. And so I'm just going to walk you through this. This isn't my model. I didn't make this up. This is created by some geniuses who you can find in the comment section. And we're going to walk through it and just talk through it and see what this whole ABCDE thing is. So, A. A stands for the activating event. So, usually when we're feeling something, we are feeling it because something's going on, right? Maybe you dropped something on your foot, or you saw a beautiful sunset, or your spouse, for the 380 millionth time, didn't put the garbage in the garbage and left it on the counter, right? So there's all of these sorts of challenges that happen in our life, and frankly, we've got no control over them. That's a problem, but not one we can solve, because controlling other people is actually not very nice. So the idea here is, okay, activating events happen. The rest of our alphabet soup. So, B, what does B stand for? Well, B stands for beliefs. Okay? C stands for consequences. D stands for decision or do. And this E stands for effect. It's interesting to note that both A and E are outside of our control. So the activating event, whatever it might be, and the effect of whatever it is we've decided to do happen out there outside of us. What works for certain self-control and what we're able to kind of manage internally are B, C, and D. And these are our beliefs, these are our consequences or feelings of the beliefs, and then our decisions. Now, if you look at brain science and what they've figured out when they look at how people make decisions, from a biological perspective, our feelings drive our decisions. And they've done MRIs and all kinds of fancy things to note that, and to find out that actually before we even think about what we're going to be doing, we feel something about it. And that feeling predetermines what we do about it. So feelings are very, very powerful. And we need to be careful when we run our life based on feelings, because feelings actually run us. And that's a challenge. Lots of people say, well, I'm trying to control my feelings. We can't, because they control us. Because they come before our decisions, and they happen precognitively before we start thinking about it. So our brains have more or less decided for us. And there's a few tricks that we can learn to manage that. There's a few things that we can do to reduce the amount of time that we make negative decisions. as a result of that. But I'm primarily interested in backing the bus up a little bit here. So what controls our feelings? Right? If our feelings control our decisions and our actions, what controls our feelings? Where can we step in to manage what's going on for us? Well, right back here in beliefs. So let's take an example. Let's go with the garbage on the counter. Okay, so everybody knows where the garbage can is. And the counter is a place where garbage is generated. So let's say you're making hot dogs and for some reason they're all individually wrapped. And so you go through the hassle of removing that wrapping and you just kind of put it down on the counter and you put it on your plate and play it in the microwave or out to the barbecue, whatever, and there's that little piece of plastic, right? And mom walks in or you walk in, you look down, you see the little piece of plastic, the garbage is literally 2 feet away, and it's like, what is going on here? So activating event is that little tiny piece of garbage on the counter. Not a big deal, really. I mean, it weighs maybe 1/10 of a gram and it's 2 feet. So like for you, it's no big deal to move it either. But we believe something about that piece of garbage, right? Because that's not the first time a piece of garbage has been left on that counter. It is in fact not the 100th time that that's happened. It's probably the 20,000th time that's happened. And so you've got a very strong belief system about garbage on the counter, and that belief system is it ought to be in the garbage. It should be in the garbage. And so we're left with this belief that, you know what? This is a moral problem. Somebody has failed to respect the fact that other people use this kitchen, and if they don't clean it up, I have to clean it up. Right? So I'm believing this to be true, and you can imagine if I'm walking in and I see this thing and I might actually believe that this person was lazy, inconsiderate, and very hard to train. Well, what are the feelings that are going to come with that? Right? If that's my belief system, I'm looking at that piece of garbage, I'm going to feel unhappy. I'm going to feel frustrated. I'm going to feel disrespected, maybe. There's a bunch of stuff. And if I'm in a light, happy mood and everything's going well, I might actually just go, oh, well, deal with it another time and throw it away. If I'm not in a good place, or this is just like I literally just talked to them yesterday, I might actually be feeling strongly about this. Right? So here's this tiny little piece of garbage, and I'm feeling very strongly about it and so what might I do in that moment? Right? I might take a picture of it, post it on the Messenger app where the family is all built in with a big giant question mark, exclamation point, question mark. Right? I'm sending my negative energy out into the entire house. Right now the entire house knows Dad's not happy. Right? And somebody in particular is going to go, dang, that was me, arg, what do I do, right? I mean, it's a pretty intense response to a little piece of garbage. I lost control over my behaviors when I chose to believe all of these negative things about that piece of garbage, right? I am choosing how to believe about that activating event, that tiny little piece of garbage. What's another way that I could look at it? Right? I could look at it from the perspective of, oh, look, there's garbage. No big deal for me to clean it up. Right? I know sometimes I forget to clean up and somebody cleans up after me. So this is just part of what it means to be family. Right? So I just think, oh, hey, you know what? That's easy to forget. I'm just going to throw that away for them. Not a big deal. No need to get a lot of feelings about that. Right? Just do it, forget about it, get on with my day, right? So my decision at that point is actually just to clean up because that's what I wanted in the first place. Effect on everybody? Well, there isn't one, except that they come into a slightly less dirty kitchen and I am in a better mood. So we can believe whatever we want, really, about what's happening around us. Now, if you apply this to people who are genuinely behaving in ways that are disrespectful, and are deliberate, our beliefs might actually be true, right? If they are deliberately leaving garbage around because they don't care. They're not going to do what you want them to do. They're just, you know what, they know that you'll clean it up and they don't care, right? They don't care that you don't feel good about them. What am I going to want to believe about that? Right? I still have control over my belief system, even if the worst things are true about that activating event, that garbage is left on purpose without care or concern, and that if you were to post it on Messenger, they'd look at it and go, who cares? Never know it was me, right? I could be rightly believing all of those things and rightly feeling angry and hurt and upset about that, and have to then make a decision about what to do next, right? So it's not that the negative story is never correct or accurate, it's what do we want to do about it, right? Because I could still believe about that, you know what, they aren't listening to me, they don't want to do what I ask of them. So at that point then it becomes a question of what do I believe my role is? What do I need to do in order to live by my values? And that's really the thing that stops us from running down this road, acting all kinds of weird and unhappy. Because we have certain values that live at our belief level, right? Maybe you're a person of faith. Maybe you're a person with deep family values. Maybe you've spent a lot of time trying to become who you want to be, right? All of that lives up here and will have a positive effect on how you feel moving forward. So you might actually, instead of feeling angry and frustrated and hurt and disrespected, you might feel a sense of resolve and purpose that you're going to figure out what's going on. So now we're not solving the activating event anymore, we're solving why the activating event is happening. And so we're able then to feel that sense of resolve and strength and moving forward because we believe that it's possible to rebuild relationships. We believe it's possible to convey empathy and to connect with other people. Right? So all of our beliefs feed into this, and if we take the time and do the work, I've been working on this for like over 20 years, still don't always do this well, right? However, because of my baseline of beliefs, because I hold strong to my values, I very rarely have a decision that has a significant negative effect. Right? Everything I have done lately is more or less resolvable within a few hours of talking it through, calming down, and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's not this profound, deep, long effect. So we raise the bar in terms of the impact that we have. So this is the most efficient place to begin changing or managing our emotions, is to manage our beliefs. And really, ultimately, when we do have an impact that we don't want to have, if we cause somebody we love pain because of our actions, then we are going to go back and want to do it differently next time. And so we're going to address our beliefs. What am I believing that's not helpful? And ultimately, that's what I think is the most useful measure of a belief. It isn't if it's right. And that might sound strange. It's not even if it's true. Because we walk around with a lot of kind of little r rights, little t truths, things that we can see from here, and they're only as true as our perception is strong. And so really when I think about, well, what kinds of beliefs do I want to have? I want to have beliefs that are helpful for me having the impact in the world that I want to, which means I'm living by my values, which means I can put my head on my pillow at night and feel good about myself. Because what I've done that day has been helpful. And if we stop thinking about things as if this is true, we get out of this rut where we have to be right. And get to the point where, how do we live by our values? Now let's say you're at this point and you're feeling strongly and you've kind of run straight past your beliefs because you haven't had a chance to think about them yet, and you're feeling something strongly. We can intervene here as well. It's just harder, right? There's a video on timeouts, so that's something you might do here, is a timeout as a way to manage strong emotions that might have a negative impact on people. And you might also do some breathing. So we can do some breathing exercises. We can count to 10. That's been a thing, right? When you get upset, just count to 10. You can simply hold the emotion and sit in it, right? That's the thing about feelings, is they don't last. They're not particularly determined to stay around, because whatever is stimulated and whatever the activating event is kind of passes off, and our body knows that it doesn't need to hold on to those emotions forever. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why we keep having to work at being happy, or keep having to work at being angry, and rehearsing pain or rehearsing positive things to maintain that emotional response. We can actually just sit in our emotions. And a timeout is good for that, and I'll talk about that in the other video. But breathing, counting, paying attention, taking this moment to notice, oh hey, I'm feeling strongly right now, and don't actually move on to the decision stage, except to decide to go back and try to figure out what it is you're reacting to, right? Strong emotions are a good opportunity to notice something's impacted you. There has been an activating event of some sort. It may not even be obvious what it is. And taking the time to sit in it and figure out what's going on, especially in the early stages of kind of developing your capacity to manage emotions, you can simply hold that space and let yourself feel the feel. That is so hard for me. I really struggle with this, and so it's something that I've had to practice. It's something where I've had to actually just stay in the room and sit and experience it. And I've discovered through that process that the feelings aren't as scary as they seem to be. And the reason for why I'm feeling what I'm feeling, what activating event and belief system is interacting, is very instructive for me to know what to do next. Now, this third place where we can intervene, which is in this decision point, is another place that the timeout can show up. And it is a place where we don't kind of permit ourselves to act on negative emotions, right? But we don't, there's certain rules, boundaries, laws that I've kind of created for myself. Guidelines is a preferable word. And I simply don't give myself permission to touch people when I'm angry, because I don't have a lot of awareness in that moment of how hard I'm touching them. And it doesn't take much for my body to go from a hand on the arm to gripping a little too hard, or pushing away, or anything like that. So there's some kind of rules of engagement, if you will, that show up when we get to this point. If we just kind of run straight through, and honestly, a lot of people think that they just go straight from the activating event to their action, right? And you'll hear people say this: if you didn't do that, I wouldn't have done this, right? What they're telling you is we went straight from A to D, which is not true. We go A, B, C, D, E every time. It just so happens that our beliefs, our feelings, and our decisions are just squished into a tiny microcosm. Because now, if you remember from our the video on developing of an unhealthy self, our little I's are pre-wired to go from A to D here, right? So you're basically your little, that's a little I thing if you're going straight from A to D. Right? Because they know what to do, they know what to believe, they know what to feel, they know how to move. And so the idea here is to start slowing things down. And that's such a key point. Slow down. There is no urgency. I know it feels urgent, I know it feels super important. Again, a feeling driven by your beliefs. And if you change your belief that when things happen that don't feel good for you, you actually need to slow down. And that's what the science says too. The science says when we give ourselves time to think, time to engage and decide before we act, the quality, the effectiveness of our response goes up by 80%, even if it's just a fraction of a second. So slow this process down. It is so important. When an activating happens, you'll probably only notice the event has happened when you start feeling about it. And so at that point, slow down. Back up to your beliefs. Why did that make me feel that way? Because a piece of garbage, that'll feel different to everybody. And you probably have stories in your own life. Maybe it bothers you when people cut in front of you while driving. Maybe it bothers you when people are late for things. That's a personal favorite for me. Maybe it bothers you when people use imprecise words, or when people require you to use imprecise words. There's lots of different kinds of reasons out there to get feelings about people. And you can probably spend some time thinking about this for yourself. What are the things that I tend to react to? What are my little eyes hypervigilant for? What are they watching for? And how can I actually step in as a grown adult, as a resourced person, step in and slow this process down so that I can stay true to my values? Ultimately, that's what all this work is about. At the end of the day, did I control myself well enough that I lived by my values and I had the impact that I wanted to? Thanks for watching this video on managing emotions. I look forward to any feedback that you have, and yeah, think about this, spend some time considering what are your beliefs and how are they affecting how you feel. Thanks again for watching.